Okay, let's unpack this. You're probably maybe juggling the idea of ditching the traditional garage setup.
Yeah, the fixed location, the waiting around.
Exactly. And taking your skills out on the road. It's a compelling vision, right? Setting your own pace, maybe cutting down on those massive overheads at the firm.
And offering that incredible convenience of bringing the repair bay directly to the customer.
Right. So this episode, it's basically your shortcut to understanding exactly what goes into making that vision a reality for a mobile mechanic business.
And we're doing it by really diving deep into the stack of articles, guides, and research. Think of these sources as like your initial roadmap, okay? Our mission here is to pull out the absolute essentials, highlight the critical steps, maybe point out where things might get tricky.
The pitfalls.
Exactly, the pitfalls, and shine a light on the opportunities waiting in the mobile mechanic world. We want you to get a really clear, actionable picture from all this material.
So, yeah, no need to read through every single page yourself. We've done the heavy lifting, so to speak, so let's get into it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to ShopTalk, the podcast where auto repair pros get real insights to grow smarter, run smoother, and boost profits.
Let's start right at the beginning then, because the fundamental shift here is the definition itself. What is a mobile mechanic really compared to the mechanic you drive your car to?
Well, the core difference is mobility, obviously. A mobile mechanic travels to the customer's location, whether that's their home, their office, right? Maybe even a roadside spot sometimes. They perform maintenance and repairs right there. You're basically eliminating the customer's trip to the shop.
And the sources really seem to hammer home why someone would choose this path, both as a business owner and, well, for the customer too. On the mechanic side, there's that flexibility we mentioned.
Absolutely. You're not necessarily tied to a physical shop's opening hours. You can potentially set your own schedule, manage your workload day to day, right? If a day is slow, you have the flexibility perhaps to use that time differently, unlike being committed to being physically present at a shop waiting for work.
Which I guess directly impacts one of the biggest appeals, the lower cost structure.
Oh yeah, that's a major takeaway from the sources. You're sidestepping huge expenses like commercial rent, high utility bills for a large space, property taxes,
All that overhead.
all that fixed overhead. Your main operating costs shift more towards fuel, vehicle maintenance, insurance. These tend to be significantly lower than the fixed costs of a traditional garage.
And for the customer, I mean, that convenience factor is huge in today's world, isn't it?
It really aligns perfectly with modern consumer demand. People value services that come to them, whether it's, food delivery, groceries, or now car repair. Bringing the service eliminates a big chunk of hassle for the customer, arranging lifts, sitting in waiting rooms, juggling schedules. The sources definitely see this as a primary driver for a mobile mechanic's potential profitability. You're constantly on the move, which requires really efficient route planning and frankly can be tiring. Transporting all your tools and necessary parts requires careful organization and, crucially, the right vehicle setup. And you don't get that passive business from cars just driving past a physical shop.
Right, no walk-ins.
Exactly. You have to be much more proactive in finding your customers.
Okay, so the freedom comes with these logistical demands. Speaking of working wherever the car is, what services are actually feasible on the go? You can't exactly roll up with a full lift and tire mounting machine, can you?
No, you're definitely limited compared to a full workshop. That's true. But there's a pretty wide range of profitable services that are absolutely mobile-friendly. Brake service is a classic example.
Okay.
Brakes wear out relatively quickly, and many brake jobs, replacing pads and rotors, can often be done without needing a full lift setup.
That makes sense. What else is kind of on that list?
Battery replacements are perfect for mobile. Dead batteries are a super common issue, especially for older internal combustion engine vehicles where they last maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, you can really be a hero for someone stranded.
Yeah, definitely. Air filters are quick and easy, ideal for customers who just appreciate the convenience for simple maintenance tasks. And the core stuff, like
Oil changes, still doable.
yes, oil changes are still a staple for ICE vehicles and entirely doable on site. The sources, though, wisely point out that anyone starting now really must consider the rise of EVs.
Right, the electric vehicle shift.
Yeah, electric vehicles will require different knowledge, different tools down the line. But for the moment, traditional services are still very much in demand. Beyond that, routine maintenance like spark plugs, belt replacements, fluid changes, and quick diagnostics using OBD scanner are all well within the mobile scope.
And tires. That feels like a really natural fit for mobile service somehow.
It is. Tire rotations and replacements are frequently mentioned as good mobile services. It offers convenience and often a more competitive price than, say, towing a car to a shop just for a flat or damaged tire.
Got it. So there's a solid menu of services you can realistically offer. Now let's talk about the steps to actually getting this business off the ground. Where do the sources say you even begin?
Well, the absolute foundational step, according to pretty much all the sources, is the business plan.
Okay, the blueprint.
Exactly. This isn't just a formality, it's your blueprint. The SH sources really emphasize defining exactly what services you'll provide, how you'll price them, who your ideal customer is, and critically, your financial picture.
A money side.
Yeah. How will you fund the initial outlay for tools and your vehicle? What are your projected earnings and expenses? Getting this down on paper really helps you see the path forward clearly.
And once you have that blueprint, the maybe not so glamorous but entirely necessary stuff comes next.
Yeah.
Legal requirements and licensing. I imagine this varies a lot depending on where you are.
Oh, it varies dramatically. The sources really highlight this. You see extremes like Florida, where apparently a state business license isn't required specifically for mobile mechanics,
Wow, really?
versus California, which mandates licensing from the Bureau of Automotive Repair, the BR. That's a massive difference in the regulatory burden you're facing.
Wow, that is a huge difference. So you absolutely have to research your specific local area.
Absolutely critical. Beyond specific mechanic regulations, you'll likely need a general local business license, possibly permits for working on vehicles in certain areas, maybe like environmentally sensitive zones, and definitely a sales tax side if you're selling parts. Right, for the taxes. Yeah. You also need to decide on your business structure, sole proprietor, LLC, etc., which has legal and tax implications. And the sources mentioned needing trade licensing plates for vehicles you might need to test drive after repair, which usually require regular renewal. It's crucial to check the specifics for your city, county, and state.
And what about qualifications? If someone isn't already, a seasoned mechanic, what's the path?
The sources are pretty clear that you need the right skills. You can't just wing it. Paths mentioned include formal education, like college-level diplomas in vehicle maintenance, apprenticeships, or maybe vocational training programs. They also stress the need to stay updated, especially with how fast vehicle technology is evolving. Things like NVQ levels or similar certifications are mentioned, and achieving certifications like ASE is highlighted as particularly valuable. ASE? Yeah, Automotive Service Excellence. One source points out that ASE-certified mechanics can potentially earn like 10% more, so it's really an investment in your earning potential.
Okay, yeah, a 10% potential earnings boost definitely makes those certifications sound pretty appealing. All right, let's talk about the heart of the operation, the tools.
Right. These are non-negotiables. Your quality of work depends entirely on them. Must-haves listed consistently include a reliable diagnostic tool like a good OBD scanner.
Essential for modern cars.
Absolutely essential for troubleshooting. You'll also need a heavy-duty jack, some brake-specific tools like a pedal depressor and a bleeding kit, and of course, a comprehensive set of quality hand tools, especially wrenches. Don't skimp on the basics. Quality tools last longer and work better.
Any other tool tips that popped up in the sources?
Yeah, they suggest looking for multi-purpose tools where possible.
To
keep your inventory manageable in what's likely a confined space like a van.
Good point. Space is limited.
And importantly, they also mention software as a tool. Things like estimating software can really streamline quoting and invoicing, saving you significant time.
Time is money, especially when you're billing by the hour or job. Now, something that feels incredibly important, maybe even more so for a mobile business working on someone else's property, liability insurance.
This is all about mitigating risk, which is arguably higher when you're working on expensive assets at various uncontrolled locations. Liability insurance is absolutely essential. It covers potential damage to customer property, which is probably a primary risk when you're working on their driveway or in their garage.
Yeah, drop a heavy tool on our car or something.
Exactly. Or potential physical injuries, though maybe less likely, still important, and even legal defense costs if you unfortunately face a claim. The sources mention different types, like motor trade insurance or a combined trader's policy. The key takeaway is you need to research options based on your specific services and risks. It's an investment in protecting your entire business.
Peace of mind is definitely worth it there.
Okay.
And your primary asset, the thing that makes you mobile, is your vehicle.
Exactly. It's literally your workshop on wheels, so choosing the right one is critical. Key factors highlighted across the board include fuel economy. You'll be driving a lot, so a gas guzzler just eats directly into profits.
Makes sense. Cargo space is paramount. You need enough room for all your tools and common parts, and this varies based on your service specialty.
Someone focusing on tires needs a different space than someone doing mostly diagnostics. Sure, the configuration matters too. Can you organize the interior space effectively? How versatile is it? Can you add shelving easily?
And speaking of being mobile, there's a challenge traditional shops don't really face head-on: the weather.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. No temperature-controlled bay out there. Yeah. You're exposed to the elements, blazing sun, pouring rain, maybe even light snow depending on your climate. So what do? Well, the sources mention mobile mechanics finding solutions like, maybe temporary shelters that attach to their vehicle or carrying things like collapsible gazebos. Of course, these take up valuable cargo space, but they offer essential protection when you need it.
Practical solutions for a very practical problem. What about the startup costs beyond the obvious vehicle and tool investments? Is there anything else?
Yeah, even as a mobile operation, you'll likely need some kind of administrative setup. The sources estimate office setup costs. Think a computer, maybe a printer, communication tools like a dedicated phone line, perhaps a small desk space at home, could range roughly from, say, $1,700 to maybe $4,400. Okay, they do suggest ways to minimize this, like using existing equipment if you can, finding secondhand furniture, or just setting up a dedicated corner as a home office.
And the training and certification costs we talked about earlier, those factor into startup too, right?
They do. Those also factor into the initial investment. The cost there varies widely. Vocational school can be pretty significant, maybe $10,000, $20,000. Online certifications might be much less, like $5,000. Yeah. And specific tests like ASC are more modest, maybe $300, $800 per certification area. But again, this is an investment in your skills and your potential earnings power, and the sources do note there might be funding options like grants or small business loans available to help offset these costs.
Okay, so you've got the plan, the legal side sorted, the skills, the right tools, the perfect vehicle, you're insured, and you have your basic admin set up. How do you actually get customers to call you instead of just heading to the nearest garage? Marketing seems absolutely critical for a mobile business.
It's essential, yeah. Especially in the beginning when nobody knows who you are. Yeah. Conventional methods still have a place. Things like flyers in local high-traffic spots, maybe grocery store bulletin boards, or offering incentives for referrals from your first few happy customers can work. But your online presence is arguably much more important when you don't have that physical storefront sign drawing people in.
Right. So what does that online presence look like based on what the sources were saying?
Well, first off, a professional website is pretty much non-negotiable. It's your digital storefront. It's where you showcase your services, list your pricing ideally, share testimonials or reviews, and provide really clear contact information.
Easy to find, easy to book.
Exactly. Since you're mobile, making it super easy for people to find you online and understand how to book your service is key. Social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram are great for building a digital brand. Share photos, maybe before and afters of work you've done. People love those. They do. Customer feedback. Engaging content like short videos explaining common problems. Blogs can add value by sharing maintenance tips. And registering with local online business directories is also crucial for visibility. One source mentioned Trust a Trader as an example in some regions. And basic search engine optimization, SEO for your website, helps people find you when they search for things like mobile mechanic near me.
Okay. And referrals and word of mouth must be like gold for this kind of personal on-site service.
Oh, they are incredibly powerful. Delivering excellent, trustworthy service naturally leads to referrals. You should actively encourage happy customers to leave reviews online and spread the word. Maybe even implement a structured incentive program for referrals. Like a discount? Yeah. Maybe a discount on their next service or something similar. Email marketing is another tool you can use creative messaging to reach potential customers or remind past ones about maintenance. And don't underestimate old-school local networking. Attend auto repair events if possible, carry business cards, and introduce yourself to owners of other relevant local businesses, like maybe auto parts stores.
Those are all excellent strategies for getting those first calls and building momentum. Okay, once the phone actually rings, how do you figure out what to charge? Pricing your services seems like a constant balancing act.
It really is. You need to be competitive enough to attract customers, but profitable enough to stay in business and, make a living.
Right.
The sources advise factoring in several things. Obviously, the cost of any parts you use. Your estimated labor time, the travel time to get to the customer.
That travel time is key.
It is. That's a cost unique to mobile and your general overheads, even if they're lower than the shops. Researching what competitors charge in your specific local area gives you a vital benchmark. You need to know the going rate.
And transparency helps.
Definitely. Transparency is key for building trust. Offer clear pricing structures whenever possible. Maybe provide free estimates, or consider bundling common services like oil changes or brake jobs into fixed price packages. Customers really appreciate knowing what to expect financially up front.
Yeah, no one likes surprise charges. Clear pricing definitely helps with customer service and ultimately keeping those customers, retention. How do you keep them coming back?
Building relationships is really key here. Reliable, high-quality service is obviously the foundation. Respond promptly to inquiries, be punctual for appointments, and provide effective, trustworthy solutions. Fix it right the first time.
Table stakes, really.
Laughs. Exactly. Beyond that, consider strategies like loyalty programs, maybe offering small discounts for repeat customers, or simply following up with a text or call a few days after a service call just to ensure everything is still running smoothly. These small touches can make a big difference in encouraging repeat business and generating those positive reviews and referrals we talked about.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty now. The numbers. What's the real earning potential look like, and what really drives profitability in a mobile mechanic business, according to these sources?
Well, the sources paint a pretty broad picture for earning potential, as you might expect. The range mentioned goes from perhaps $50,000 a year on the lower end up to over $120,000 annually, potentially even more. Sounds
That's
lovely.
a huge range.
It is. This range depends heavily on location. Metropolitan areas often see maybe 20–30% higher earnings just due to higher demand and population density. But it also really depends on how efficiently you operate and the specific services you specialize in.
Okay, so what are the critical factors for pushing towards that higher end of the range? What makes a difference?
Efficiency seems paramount. Managing your time well, maximizing the number of appointments you can realistically fit into a day, minimizing idle time or wasted travel between jobs. The sources indicate this alone can boost your profit margin by over 15%. Wow, just being organized. Pretty much. Customer retention is also huge. Providing quality service and competitive pricing can increase retention rates by something like 30%, ensuring a steady stream of recurring revenue and those valuable referrals. Cost management is always important. Keeping tight control of expenses for tools, parts, fuel, and other operations can improve monthly earnings significantly, maybe by 10% or more. And of course, effective marketing strategies are needed to consistently bring in new customers, potentially increasing acquisition by 25% or so.
So it boils down to being efficient, keeping customers happy, watching your costs, and smart marketing. What's the typical profit margin look like on a job?
The sources generally suggest a typical profit margin falls somewhere between 15% and 25% per job. This is often higher than traditional garages, precisely because of that lower overhead structure we talked about earlier. Less rent, fewer utility bills.
Right, that makes sense. What are some of the common financial challenges mobile mechanics tend to face?
Well, they include things like fluctuating demand and seasonal variations. Service calls might dip by, say, 20% during slower periods like deep winter in some climates.
Right, people put off repairs.
Exactly. Managing parts inventory and costs can be tricky. You need common parts on hand so you don't waste time running to the store, but you also don't want too much money tied up in excess stock just sitting in the van. And part prices can fluctuate. Competition is always a factor, both from physical garages and increasingly other mobile services.
Yeah, it's becoming more popular.
It is. And balancing competitive pricing with maintaining a healthy profit margin is a constant challenge. Some businesses might underprice themselves just to gain traction, maybe ending up with margins as low as 10%, while more successful ones often maintain 20–25% by really emphasizing the value and convenience they offer, not just the price.
Those are definitely real pressures to navigate. How does business growth, like taking on more work, translate into higher earnings?
Well, growth can directly impact income in several ways. Expanding your customer base through effective marketing and referrals can increase your service calls significantly, maybe by 25–30%. Entering new geographic markets, especially if you move into nearby urban areas with high demand, could potentially add substantial annual revenue, maybe over $50,000 according to one source. And a key growth step often is hiring additional mechanics. This exponentially increases your capacity to take on jobs, improves overall efficiency if managed well, and directly amplifies your potential income. Also, investing in better diagnostic technology and tools contributes by making you and your team more efficient, potentially improving service speed by 20–35%.
It sounds like the potential is definitely there if you manage it right and plan for that growth. The sources specifically called out 5 key strategies for really maximizing profit and income. These seem pretty important to cover.
They are. Yeah, they seem to be the areas where you can go beyond just being a good mechanic on the road to being a really savvy, profitable mobile business owner.
Okay, what's the first one?
First is focusing on the digital experience. The sources highlight leveraging platforms for things like easy online booking, gathering customer feedback systematically, setting up personalized service reminders.
Like, hey, your oil change is due soon.
Exactly. And running loyalty programs. A user-friendly app was mentioned specifically as simplifying the entire booking and tracking process for customers. This focus on digital convenience can apparently lead to a pretty significant 15–20% increase in revenue and a retention rate boost of over 25%.
That makes a lot of sense, just making it super easy to do business with you online.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the second strategy?
The second one is fleet maintenance. So actively targeting businesses that operate their own small or large fleets of vehicles. Think delivery services, construction companies, local tradespeople with multiple vans.
Right, businesses that depend on their vehicles running.
Exactly. Offering them tailored maintenance packages and trying to secure long-term contracts. This opens up potentially significant new revenue streams, maybe increasing earnings by up to 35% compared to just doing individual consumer jobs. Contracts can make up a large chunk of your total income, providing steady, predictable revenue. And these contracts often come with higher profit margins, maybe 20–30%, and excellent retention rates like 75–85% because businesses value reliability.
That consistent business sounds very appealing compared to constantly chasing one-off consumer jobs. What about the third strategy?
Number 3 is operational efficiency. This is really about optimizing how you actually work day to day. Streamlining logistics, like using route planning software or GPS tools to minimize driving, can reduce travel time by 15–20%, freeing you up for more paying jobs.
More billable hours.
Precisely. Investing in high-quality multi-purpose tools can save money on equipment costs in the long run and maybe improve profit by 5%–8%. Even seemingly small things like energy-efficient practices, maybe for charging tool batteries, can reduce operational expenses over time. And time management training for yourself or any mechanics you hire can improve job completion times by up to 25%. It's all about maximizing those billable hours and minimizing waste.
It all ties back to that efficiency point we mentioned earlier, but this really focuses on the how.
Got it. And a fourth strategy?
Fourth is leveraging social media and online marketing more strategically. This goes beyond just having a basic presence. It's about actively creating engaging content. Those before and after photos of repairs we talked about, customer testimonials, short videos explaining common car issues or maintenance tips.
Providing value. Exactly. This kind of content can boost online engagement by 30% or more. Running targeted ads, particularly geo-targeted ones focusing specifically on your service area, can increase local inquiries by maybe 25%. Partnering with relevant local online influencers or running special promotions and referral campaigns on social media can also drive significant business. This strategy is linked in the sources to achieving maybe a 20% average profit margin and reaching those higher earning figures potentially up to $120,000.
So actively using those online platforms, not just to exist, but to really showcase your work and reach the right local people. Okay, what's the fifth and final strategy? This one sounded interesting.
Yeah, this one's particularly interesting. Implementing a subscription model. So instead of just offering one-off repairs when something breaks, you offer regular maintenance packages for a fixed monthly or annual fee. Like a car maintenance membership? Kind of, yeah. This creates predictable, steady cash flow, which is huge for a small business. It could potentially increase your recurring revenue by up to 40% compared to just relying on traditional call-out jobs. For customers, it offers convenience, maybe peace of mind, and often benefits like priority booking or discounted diagnostics. For your business, it smooths out those revenue fluctuations we talked about, makes scheduling potentially easier, and helps you forecast demand for parts and time. The sources cite some benchmarks showing that businesses using subscription models often see higher average monthly revenue, sometimes significantly higher, better profit margins, maybe 25% versus 15%, and substantially higher customer retention rates, like 85% versus 60% compared to traditional call-based models.
That subscription model feels particularly innovative for a service business like auto repair. And it seems like all these strategies, especially digital experience and operational efficiency, really benefit from using the right technology, right?
Oh, absolutely. Software platforms, tools like Shopofficer were mentioned repeatedly in the sources as things that can tie all of this together. They helped streamline scheduling, invoicing, taking payments, managing customer history and communication, creating estimates, tracking workflow, and even managing basic inventory.
Takes the admin headache away.
Exactly. Using good software handles a lot of the administrative burden, freeing you up to spend more time actually doing the mechanic work, which is where you make your money.
That makes a ton of sense. Let the tech handle the back end so you can focus on being the expert mechanic. Okay, finally, if the business is actually thriving, what do the sources say about potential expansion?
Well, the main growth options mentioned are pretty logical. Hiring more mechanics is the big one to increase your capacity and take on more jobs simultaneously.
Scaling up.
Right. You could also expand the range of services you offer, perhaps moving into more complex diagnostics as you gain experience and equipment, or maybe specializing in emerging areas like EV repair, which is going to be huge. Or you could simply expand your geographic service area, covering more ground.
And what are the new challenges that come with that kind of growth?
Well, hiring and retaining skilled, reliable mechanics can be difficult, as any shop owner knows. Managing a larger team and a more complex operational scope definitely adds complexity, and there's often an inherent increase in the owner's workload, shifting from doing the work to managing the work and the people.
More management, less wrenching, maybe.
Potentially, yeah. The sources reiterate that having the right tools and especially good management software in place becomes absolutely essential to handle that increased complexity effectively as you grow.
Well, that was quite the journey through these sources, wasn't it? Covered everything from the basic definition all the way to scaling for major profit.
It really laid out a pretty clear path, I think. Starting a mobile mechanic business involves, careful planning, significant initial investment in tools, and the vehicle, building the right skills, and really focusing on smart operations.
Yeah, but it seems by leveraging that core advantage, the convenience you offer, and then implementing some of these modern strategies the sources highlight, like the digital tools or those fleet contracts, the potential for solid income and real growth is clearly there.
Definitely. It provides a pretty comprehensive overview, hitting all the key practical, legal, and business aspects someone really needs to consider before jumping in.
So as you, the listener, think about what we've just discussed, based on your own local market and the kind of demand you see around you, which of those strategies for boosting profitability, like, say, launching a subscription service for that steady revenue, or perhaps focusing heavily on securing those potentially lucrative fleet maintenance contracts, which one do you think offers the most untapped potential right now where you are? Something to mull over as you maybe plan your own move into the mobile mechanic world.
Right. Thanks for tuning in to Shop Talk by Shopofficer. If you found this helpful, share it with a fellow mechanic or shop owner and follow for more real-world advice. Want to take your shop digital? Visit shopofficer.com to get started for free. Until next time, keep wrenching smarter.
1, 2,